afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here with you today for our fireside chat. My name is Francis Mwangi, and I am the Group Information Security and Infrastructure Manager at Platcorp Group. Today we have having a very exciting session discussing about digital transformation and guarding the digital vault. What do you do regarding a situation where you have to look at protection of data within the insurance industry, and especially in the age of digital transformation? And from what we have seen is that there's been a lot of technological transformation in various organizations, and specifically even in the insurance industry. So with me today is Eugene Sanya, and he is the group CIO at AAR, and he's going to introduce himself as we delve into this conversation today. So, Eugene, karibu sana.
Thank you, Francis. And it's good to be here. As introduced, I'm Eugene Sanya, Head of Technology for the group at AR Insurance. And I've been with the company for now almost 13 years in different capacities. And it's good to be in this interview with you, Francis.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Karibu sana. 13 years, wow, that's quite, a lengthy time, and I'm sure you've picked up quite a lot in your many years of being in the industry.
Yeah.
Today we are discussing about guarding the digital vault and looking at digital transformation, which is something we have seen happen a lot through the years, and especially pre-COVID, COVID, and post-COVID era. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we're seeing, disruptive technology coming in, the likes of ChatGPT, the likes of AI and ML, IoT, cloud computing. And of course, with that, it does not come without its own pitfalls. Because in security, we talk about the threat landscape, becoming larger or increasing. So from your perspective, and from the current industry that you're in, what are some of the digital transformation initiatives that you've been able to witness, and how have they impacted the business or the industry?
Well, good. Thanks. I think, first of all, maybe talking from my side and the experience we have from within as early adapters of some of the new technologies like cloud and moving our entire workloads to the cloud, the journey that started in 2019. We have also had a lot of things that are in the IoT space, things that would better help us derive our value to the customer through wearable devices, which would be able to monitor health and therefore be able to help us price accordingly. And also we've moved into the space where we've developed digital capabilities for our distributors, being a force multiplier to us, and that just happened, for example, in this year, in the last 5 or so months, but the output is huge for us. So those have been some of our biggest moving areas. We've just talked about the recent launching of a new core platform, and I know as a cycle within this industry, we always have a similar plan. So it's a fact that within the next few years, you're going to see a lot of movement into the cloud within the industry, a lot of revamp on the core platforms, and a lot of learnings from each other. We've also seen a huge adoption of AI capabilities and driven not specifically within by the technology team from the AR side, but even our users are leading the trail. And we seem to almost be like dragging behind, just from the common use tools like the OTA, the AI, the ChatGPT, and the user is ahead of us. So it's been a challenge in terms of bringing ourselves up to speed in terms of laying the frameworks that would then govern proper use of such tools.
Interesting. And it's good because you've mentioned things to do with wearable devices. And just in connection with IoT technology, and you've also mentioned ChatGPT. When you look at it from that perspective, there is a big discussion right now locally about data privacy. Recently, if you look at the trend and the cases that have come up. The ODPC having fined a few players in the industry because of being in breach of the Data Protection Act.
Yeah.
You know, with the likes of, there's a school that was fined 4 million for, you know, sharing the image of one of their students, a minor, yeah, and also a restaurant that was also in the mix, being fined for sharing an image of a reveler.
Yeah.
You know, so such like things, we're beginning to see that the ODPC is becoming more aggressive towards being able to curtail such incidences. So from your perspective, being in the insurance industry and more so dealing with health insurance, there's a lot at stake.
Yeah.
You know, there's patients' information, patients' data information, which is very critical and needs to be safeguarded. From your perspective, what are we likely to see and what are we likely to expect in that particular domain with regards to compliance with regulations? And also, what do we need to do to ensure that that information does not fall into the wrong hands? You don't have medical researchers going on. I was talking to a friend of mine called Michael, and we were discussing how ChatGPT is being used now,
Yeah.
to even for research. You don't have medical researchers who are going online with patients' data or information to research and get more information on the condition and all that, while not safeguarding that patient's data. But what are we likely to see from that perspective, and what needs to be done? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just take it back first to say it's a good thing that the privacy laws are now here with us, because they preserve ourselves, yeah? And it's a good thing, and the only thing we can do, we comply. Of course, it's been disruptive to us in that we have to relook our entire data operations and data movements, and also have to defend on why we have to collect such data and use it in the specific ways that we have to do. But on the other side, I believe it is good because the citizen is being empowered. Yeah. And we just put ourselves in their shoes. Yeah. Yeah. So without being very defensive that it's bad, it's slowing our progress. It's a good thing, number one. So what we have to do as insurance companies, or what we've done as AAR, I think we've taken the engagement to the level of now going to the government and the data protection officers and seeking guidance all along the journey of our digital transformation. We've been working and seeking interpretation of the law so that you're not caught on the wrong side. But also, we've seen that we now have to invest a lot as a company in data protection and data loss prevention tools. There's a lot that we have to do. We have had to put in terms of security apparatus. We're talking about more than 20 different security solutions that we've had to put in between 2019 and today, just to make sure that we, at least, if at all we cannot prevent 100%, but then we can defend that we did our best. We've also put our clients at the center of this because we also have to seek consent from them as to why we need such data. And the approach we are using is that if we are able to educate our members very well on why we need to have such data, then they are going to play in and be able to share that data rather than to hold onto it. So in my view, it will be a specific user by user case. There will not be one specific regulation that would cut across. One user will be very free to share their data with you. The other person would be very conservative with their data. So you have to build and have capabilities to know what are those unique requirements for each of our clients. And it's good for personalization because then it tells me how I can specifically target the different clientele that I have within my book. On the issue of adoption of AI and AI tools that are coming in, it's a big challenge. As I told you, they have run ahead of us. There's no framework or policies that are yet in place. If we have to put them, they might not be complete to make sure that the governance is well taken care of. But I think there's a starting point. We have to now make sure that the frameworks on how the data gets uploaded onto those platforms is there in place. We can allow, for example, you can use it for your own research. You can use it to know where you can get the best products for your own personal use, rather than blocking out those innovative products, because we also want to be progressive. From a data perspective, what are we doing there? What are the step-by-step procedures we are placing in terms of governing that? Tools will be needed to do that. You can't have 20 security tools in place and be able to monitor everything that happens around that space. So we are looking at tools which like the SASEs and the SSEs that will then be able to, on a single pane of glass, I'm able to monitor everything and that moves within the organization.
Okay, interesting. And when it comes to regulation, there is quite a lot of standards. When you look at the healthcare industry, there is HIPAA, and you look at financial industry, there is PCI DSS standards, and the likes. But taking it now from a governance, risk, and compliance angle, there is a lot of data that you would want to share with third parties. Because there's a lot of exchange of information happening between insurance providers, medical insurance providers, and the healthcare providers. And when it comes to governance, risk, and compliance, you need the right policies in place. You need to be able to define the governance roles. Who is responsible for what? In case maybe an incident happens, what's the incident response plan? In the event that you need to look at issues to do with culture, you need to look at issues to do with buy-in from the organization. So from your perspective, there is the investment in the infrastructure, and there is investment in training of your people so that they have the right mentality towards cyber hygiene and cyber resilience. So from your perspective, going before the executive team or going before the board, what's the approach to use? Because your executive board may not necessarily understand what a SOA is or what a SIM is, or they may not necessarily understand a DDoS attack like what happened recently with eCitizen. So what is the right approach to take so that you ensure that you get buy-in to get the necessary budgetary allocation for you to put in those measures that you have just talked about?
First of all, I'm glad that at this date, cyber security is something that is being talked about in public. Just yesterday, we saw a Citizen publish that there have been about 800 million attacks or potential attacks within the last 12 months. That is up from 7 million 7 years ago. Whether the statistics are correct or not, but at least it tells you people are concerned, and the conversation is now being moved out there into the public. So, for example, in the recent events, we are not the ones who are leading, but the executives are now coming and asking us, are we safe? Is our data safe? Kindly confirm to us what solutions or capabilities you've put in place.
They're preempting.
They're preempting. So it's a good space for us. The ground has been softened for us, but the other approach will be to conduct impact assessments. So have it very clear. You may not be able to really show the value of whatever investment you're doing, you're putting in today in terms of those tools, but look at it from a scenario of where there's a breach and the millions that you'll have to use. There's the reputation a loss that you'll have as a company. And it cuts across every industry. You've seen that it's not limited only, we're talking to insurance today.
The issue of risk quantification and being able to make them understand, for instance, that if this particular system is down, for instance, if M-Pesa goes down for 10 minutes or even for a minute, we know how much we can quantify and we know how much what loss that quantifies to. So from that perspective, how do we then go to the board and explain to them, look, if we don't invest in this particular initiative, this is what it means for us, and this is what would quantify it in figures, because we need to understand also the strategy of the organization. Where is the organization going? What will stop them from getting there? And what measures do we put in place so that we ensure that they don't suffer those mishaps that will not allow them to get there? So what's your thought on that?
Yeah, maybe to put it in a different way from what I'd explained earlier, in as much as you would want to have the value for it today, for some of the things or some of the incidents that you potentially encounter, you might not know the value of them in future, because it will be a ransom case scenario where you ask for 1 billion shillings. So it's not something that you can really put an accurate value to. But if you want to calculate the value, you just look at the volumes that you transact through these various digital platforms. There's a way you can calculate it, and there's a way you can project based on similar incidents that have happened, like in the ransomware cases. You can know how much it would cost the organization to have when they go down that specific trail. But another thing that we also are doing, with the lack of an understanding of what big risk we are going to have as an organization, based on our security apparatus that we have in place, we are also ensuring that we engage them, and, because it's not a case of, they say, of if,
it's about
when it happens. We also making sure that we articulate to them the need to have cybersecurity covers in place.
And it's interesting that you brought that, because risks, you can't quantify everything, but it's important for them to just understand what the impact is. Let's switch over to talking about culture, because we normally say, there's this phrase we like using a lot: culture will eat strategy for breakfast. So you may have the best strategy in place. This is where you want to go as an organization, as a insurance provider, but your internal culture would cannibalize that. So we want to look at it from a culture, because people are the weakest link in the organization when it comes to security. How do we cultivate that particular culture of cyber hygiene? How do we ensure that people are safe, feel safe enough to use the whistleblower programs in place? How do we ensure that people are well trained towards being able to spot the different threats and avert these kind of risks, and even in terms of insider attacks, how do we culture our people to act in a manner that is honest and ethical?
So I believe taking the conversation away from you safeguarding the government, the organization's assets, to you safeguarding your own, your own space. If you everyone nowadays uses the online tools. You use your phone. So can we take the conversation away from, we have these systems, don't click on this because you're going to bring in ransomware to the organization. Can you take that conversation to their space? Because these are things they relate with. Everyone at one point has received those SMSs asking you, tuma kwa hii number. Or someone calling you from a fictitious bank, asking you, are you using a mulika mwizi of a smartphone? So taking that conversation to their space. Another thing that we can do without fighting them, we can be as tough as saying, okay, based on our policies, we're going to disable you from accessing this network if you don't take that security awareness training. We could enforce context-aware types of training, so that when this user potentially clicks on that item, then at that point they receive now the notification and the education at that space. So they will be more appreciative. I believe that is the best way to approach it, rather than for us to go the hard way, where we enforce, you have to, and not to.
And even just riding on top of that, because there is the culture element, but there's also the enforcement of policy. Because policies, yes, can be created, but as to whether people are adhering to them or not is a different discussion altogether. So what, in your view, would make these policies more effective in terms of enforcement and even in terms of compliance? Because if I read a policy, and I don't even have to read the policy, I can just scroll down and click on, I have read and consented. But as to whether I understood what the policy says is a different story altogether. Or you've given people policies, but they've never really known what the impact of non-compliance is. Yeah. What's your view on that?
Okay. At one point, we want to make them feel the pain as well, so that we make sure that the acceptable use policies that are tested to. So try to bring them in that space, okay? If it will be found that you are a part of this, then this is what it means for you. But also, through the use of technology, then can we enforce those policies into these tools? Yeah, and because I cannot be able to monitor as a self or within the team that I have as within AR, we cannot be able to really monitor the adherence to those policies. So do we have intelligent tools that will be able to draw some correlations that there's this policy that is being breached here, and then these are the implications that it has.
Exactly.
So if we are able to build those or put those policies into these tools and capabilities, and maybe not do it as AR, we could also outsource this specific, have outsource services for that, for managed security. I've talked about the SSC as well. Yeah, so it's bigger than us and what we are capable of. At the same time, I'm thinking of how I can ensure that I run efficient IT operations. At the same time, I have to monitor policy enforcement. At the same time, I have to be innovative and think for the new direction, the digital transformation for my organization. So it's a tough area, and without digital capabilities in terms of tools that will do the analysis to correlate different activities and be able to pick these things out. I think that's the only way. If to add to what I said, bring it now into the user space so that they understand what impact it would have to them as a person.
Wow, Eugene, very interesting insights that you're bringing to light. And maybe just as we approach towards concluding this conversation, as your parting shot, what would you say are, if you were to forecast, we are in 2023 now, towards 2027 and 2030, within this particular industry, what are some of the biggest threats that you would foresee towards data, because we consider data to be, we call it the new oil, and even towards just security of our assets and our infrastructure? What are some of the things that you foresee would be the new threats at that time, and what would be the way of being able to counter them? Maybe you could give us just a few.
I think the AI tools that are coming in, if not well governed in terms of how we use or how we consume them or what we put in, is going to be a big threat from data privacy, a breach perspective. Potentially people are going to take advantage of the law. Basically, they're going to monetize the law, and we've seen that trend. It started elsewhere. We are yet to see it in the insurance space, but we're going to see people who are now keen to understand how their data is being moved about. I know there are discussions about insurance companies sharing risk profiles of companies. We're going to see a bit of a slowdown, and we're going to on the uptake of that specific direction. But we're also going to see frameworks that are going to come in place in terms of governing how we're going to be able to share the data. So those are, in my view, the things that I see. The threat from the people who are going to monetize, I believe the digital tools that are coming, and the speed at which they're learning will be hard for us to adopt to. I don't have a specific formula, but I believe as an industry, through collaboration, we're going to come up with ways on how, or a framework on how we make sure that we safeguard the user data.
Interesting. Wow, Eugene, thank you so much. It has been indeed a pleasure being able to have this discussion with you, and you've given us quite some intriguing insights into the industry, and even just what is currently there, and even what to expect. And it looks like there's a lot to look forward to futuristically.